The emergency cooling system on a second reactor is no longer functioning at the number 3 reactor. That's according to the Reuters news agency, quoting Tokyo Electric Power's Fukushima nuclear power facility. Japan is waiting for news of the thousands still missing as well. Meanwhile, following the earthquake and the tsunami, at least 1,700 people are now believed to have been killed. The earthquake, one of the largest ever recorded, had its epicenter off the east coast near the city of Sendai. State TV reporting that up to 10,000 people are feared missing.
Well, let's get the very latest from Tokyo now. Our correspondent Chris Hogg is there, joining us once again. And Chris, we're hearing disturbing reports about these radiation levels coming from one of these nuclear plants. Tell us more about that, would you?
Yes, the Japanese government is walking a tightrope here, really. On the one hand, they are trying to keep people calm. They have tried to give out a number of statements over the last 24 hours, trying to give people information, saying that yes, these radiation leaks are occurring, but that their information is that these leaks do not present at this stage a serious risk to human health. On the other hand, you look at their actions. They are evacuating now a huge area around this plant. More than 140,000 people moved. You don't move that number of people unless you have serious concerns. They're also now trying to use seawater to keep the cores of these reactors cool. Now, normally you would use fresh water or cooled water. The problem is that they had what you call a station blackout. That means that their power systems off the site, the national grid, failed, but also their power systems on site failed. This is hugely unusual. So they're really only left with using seawater to try to cool the reactor. Now, depending on who you talk to, people say this is unusual, this is innovative, but some experts in the United States are saying this is an act of desperation, because obviously if the core melts, that then will cause serious damage to the structure of the building, and then that gives you the risk of more and more of the radiation being exposed into the natural environment.
And Chris, you mentioned the evacuation of those thousands of people. That task alone from around those nuclear plants must be really problematic, given the fact that there's been the earthquake and the tsunami as well.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. I mean, this is a rural area. You've got to get the transport in. It's not like there are easy highway access. People are scattered all over that area. I mean, certainly, and they are very frightened indeed. In a lot of that area, the power is down. It's difficult to get hold of people with mobile phone communications. The mobile phone networks are under pressure. This is why I say it's a very serious decision to extend the scope of this evacuation, as we saw happening 2 or 3 times yesterday, getting wider and wider around that plant. But this is something that they regard as necessary at this stage.
Another day then, and another effort underway to try and rescue and to try and find the many thousands of people who are still unaccounted for.
Yes, there's a lot of concern, particularly about some of the more isolated areas along the coast. There are reports that in one town, for example, about half the population they haven't been able to contact. Now, that doesn't mean that all those people are dead. But certainly huge numbers of people unaccounted for. One of the problems is, as I say, it's very difficult to get to these places by road. They're using helicopters to try to rescue people. They're also sending ships to the area to try to get in by sea. But we're still in the stage where they are hopeful that if they can find people, if people are trapped, that they can rescue them. But obviously they need to get on with that as soon as possible.
BBC's Chris Hogg, live there in Tokyo. Thanks, Chris. Well, millions of people are still without power and water in northern Japan, as we've heard. The BBC's Alistair Leithhead has sent us this update from the devastated area.
Well, we've come about 30 or 40 kilometres north of Sendai, which is the town, the city that's been at the focal point of the earthquake. The damage there was seemingly quite limited. Buildings, the city centre, had been hit, but power was still on. Things appeared to be functioning as normally as people were trying to get water and fuel. But we came up here and we've reached the end of the main coast road here in a pretty dramatic fashion. You can see this is the debris that's been swept up as the tsunami brought all the debris from the surrounding fields up onto this embankment. This is a railway that runs alongside here. You can see this was one of the crossing points, and it's an area where the road has been cleared to so far. So emergency vehicles are coming along here, are able to get help further along. We've stopped just because this is the first chance we've seen to get a sense of just how bad things are here. You can see how the water has washed this against the fence. So all these trees and debris, that gives you an idea of how high it was. And also you can see this car's coming along here, getting through quite well. This is all being cleared by the emergency services. You can probably also make out many vehicles off the side of that road. And as we've come this way, we've seen cars that have been picked up and moved around, houses with a water line around this sort of height, 1.5 meters. So obviously the water was higher as it came up. And as far as where it came from, the sea and the bay is actually over there. It's about a mile, a couple of kilometres at least. I can't see it from where I am here. We came around this bay and there's an inlet that comes in, and so the water has surged right up this area and forced its way through here. Now, obviously this road is open, so we've got much further to go to get a sense of how bad things are further on, and emergency services have got here. But just the dramatic scenes you can see here give you a sense of how bad this has been.
BBC's Alistair. Lieutenant Anthony Falvo is on board the USS Blue Ridge as part of the US Navy's 7th Fleet off the coast of Japan. He explained how US ships are readying themselves to help.
There are actually 9 ships included in the humanitarian assistance effort. We have the USS Blue Ridge, which is the command and control platform for the US 7th Fleet. The ships of the USS Essex Amphibious Ready Group are steaming towards Japan right now as we speak. The ships of the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group are here, along with the USS McCampbell and USS Curtis Wilbur also assisting in the search and rescue efforts. Later on this morning, we will get the USS Mustin underway from Japan. So that will be a total of 10 ships that eventually will be available to help in the recovery efforts.
And what is the plan then from this point onwards? What are you going to be able to achieve?
Well, we will achieve whatever is asked of us by the government of Japan. Right now, specifically this morning, we have helicopters as part of the USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Air Wing that are carrying out search and rescue flights. They're also doing air reconnaissance, taking a look at the water, looking at the debris fields that are in the water, and making sure that it's safe for our ships to navigate in those waters.
And how many crew, all told, then, is involved in this whole operation? And presumably some of those crew will be able to get onto land and help out physically, will they?
Well, to be honest, that's not part of the plan right now. What we've been asked to do by the government of Japan, and I think it's important to point out, is that we are in support of the government of Japan. They will tell us exactly what they need, and at this point, what they have asked for is for the Ronald Reagan to serve as a platform for some of their helos, and also serve as a refueling platform for some of their ships. So as part of that, we've also been asked to provide the search and rescue capability. So that is exactly what we're doing to support our friends and allies in Japan.
Well, Patrick Fuller from the International Red Cross is in Japan, and he gave us the latest on the organization's work.
Well, over the past 48 hours, we've been able to deploy about 82 medical teams from the Japanese Red Cross. They've come from hospitals all over the country, so doctors, nurses who are working in the evacuation centers, working alongside existing hospitals in a lot of the areas affected by the tsunami. So the priority is to get medical help to people, but also continue the flow of relief materials. And at the moment, I'm traveling up to Sendai via Fukushima, and there's a steady convoy of trucks, emergency services vehicles, army, all heading up to the affected area.
As in often these cases we've seen in the past, it's always a case, isn't it, of actually getting to the people who are in great need of help.
It's a massive challenge. I mean, we're talking about an area of up to 600 kilometers, and that's the worst affected area along the coastline. And you simply can't get into many of these places. The roads are blocked. There's too much debris around. So reports are still filtering out of communities stranded and people only able to get in there by helicopter and by boat. So it's still early days in really getting a full picture of the scope of this disaster.
And in terms of what is needed, we often hear of the difficulties being faced by people in situations like this, of course, in terms of need of clean water and the diseases that might be occurring.
Well, Japan has a very well-developed infrastructure, and they have very well-developed emergency preparedness measures and coordination bodies here. So it's very much armed forces, emergency services, Red Cross, all working together. So thousands were evacuated before the tsunami struck. So these people need day-to-day assistance like food and water, and that's where the Red Cross is playing a strong role. But also they need a lot of psychological support. You know, there's thousands of people who have undergone severe trauma here. But I think an immediate need is to continue the search and rescue effort. So international teams, I believe, have been accepted to help in that process. Because we're talking, hundreds of kilometers that are affected.
Exactly, it's a huge task, a huge area, and we've been saying, of course, in that one town alone, 10,000 people still unaccounted for. It's just a massive, a colossal task, isn't it, to just try and find those people?
Exactly, and every day we're hearing new reports of communities, of people who are effectively missing. Now, based on experience from the 2004 tsunami in Indonesia and Sri Lanka, that doesn't bode well. Usually in a tsunami, the chances of survival are fairly remote. You turn up within days or weeks, but the severity of this and the devastation it's caused, the prospects for, I think, thousands of people, up to 1,000, probably more, are not good.
That was Patrick Fuller from the International Red Cross.
An unstoppable force. New pictures emerge of the moment the tsunami swept through towns and cities. And still there's no word on the fate of 10,000 people believed to be missing from a town near the epicenter. Japan's biggest company, Toyota, is to suspend production at all of its sites in the wake of the earthquake. The car maker says it intends to check on the safety of its employees before it starts building again. The move underlines the severe impact of the disaster on the Japanese economy and raises the threat of recession. Here's Duncan Bartlett.
Japan's Prime Minister took to the air to see for himself the damage caused by the earthquake in Fukushima and Miyagi prefectures. Some small coastal towns are thought to have been almost completely washed away. Although it's mostly a rural region, this part of Japan is also used for manufacturing. Nearly all the factories are closed and transport links are down. People in the area are out of contact as telephone lines and the internet have been knocked out of action. It's not just those living near the quake's epicenter that have been affected. In Tokyo, many people spent Friday night in their offices or in stations as normal business life ground to a standstill. The government's considering a supplementary budget to fund relief measures, and opposition leaders say they're willing to support the move, even if it means Japan must borrow more. It's already the most indebted nation in the developed world. Before the quake, Japan was teetering towards recession, with an increasingly weak government trying to get budget measures through parliament. When a major quake devastated the Japanese port of Kobe in 1995, it cost more than $100 billion. It also coincided with the start of a prolonged slump in Japan's economy, and despite a massive rebuilding effort, Kobe never again recovered its position as one of the world's busiest ports. Duncan Bartlett, BBC News.